In this video, we'll talk about wireframe and shaded mode. If you're having an older version of Maya, when you're creating an object, it is not going to look like this. It would look more like this. This is called a wireframe mode, and this is called a shaded mode. Now to switch between wireframe and shaded mode, we can press the shortcut keys 4 and 5. If I press 4, it'll go to wireframe mode. If I press 5, it'll come back to our shaded mode. Now, these are just two different ways of seeing our scene. We can also show the wireframe on top of the shaded mode by going to Shading and choosing Wireframe on Shaded. Especially while we're working with modeling, it'll be useful for you to show the wireframe on top of the shaded mode in order to better understand how our edge flow is. Switching between wireframe and shaded mode is simple as pressing 4 and 5. So this concludes this video on wireframe and shading mode. In Maya, we can create two kinds of surfaces. One is called NURBS and the other one is called polygons. We can create both of them by going to Create menu and choosing either NURBS primitives or polygon primitives. Let's look at NURBS first. I'll tear this apart. I'll tear this off so that we can look at these primitives. I'm going to start with plane because plane is the basic shape of a NURBS. Now to understand NURBS, any NURBS surface is based on the simple plane. So how can we get a cylinder from the simple plane? All we have to do is bend this surface and make sure that this end is coming up here and touching this end. We will actually have a cylinder. Let me explain that with the cylinder itself. I'm going to create a cylinder. I'll make it bigger a bit. I'll rotate it. Don't worry about this rotation and making bigger tools. We will be explaining it in the next video. So let's put it like that. I'll give an exact value of 90 degrees. If I look at these sides, we've got a lot of these lines. These lines are called isoperms. And you will notice that this one single isoperm is thicker compared to the others. That is because this is the area where two isoperms, that is this end and this end, is meeting. Let me go ahead and open this up by going to this input area and reducing this end sweep value. You can see that it's actually detaching from there and opening up. If I continue to open up, now you will notice that yes, it is indeed a simple plane that is being bent to create this shape. Okay, so cylinder is easy to understand. What about cone? Cone also is made up of a simple plane. As you can see, here is our connecting area, and this connecting area is called seam. So we've got all these isoperms and we have seam. So if I just go back here and adjust the sweep, as you can see, again we have the same thing. So here in cone we have the cylindrical shape, and then the top area is being bent or squeezed to a 0 point to make this cone. Let's look at sphere. Sphere is also made up of a simple plane, and you can see that by adjusting the end sweep. And for sphere, it is being squeezed in the top and squeezed in the bottom. Let's look at a cube. Wow, this cannot be made from planes, right? Yes, it is. But it's not just one single plane, it's multiple planes. So if I select in the top, we have one plane here, we have one plane here, and we have another plane here. So it's basically made up of 6 different planes. Now here's the tricky one, the torus. How could we make a torus from a single plane? Well, basically it involves two different directions of bending. So first we will have it bending this way, and then we have another one that goes minor sweep. Yes. Now you can see that yes, it is indeed a simple plane which is being bent in two directions in order to form the complete torus. Now let's talk about polygon primitives. If I go to create menu, polygon primitives, we can access all the polygon primitives here. Let me create a cube. In this course we're going to be focusing more on polygons. So let's talk about each of those components that makes up a polygon object. I've created a cube and I'm going to zoom in closer. I can press the shortcut key F, and you can see that this is a simple cube and it's made up of a lot of sub-objects or components. What are these components? The smallest component is called a vertex. If I right click and hold on any object, it will reveal the components that we have inside that. So we have vertex, we have edge, and we have face. Let's look at vertex first. If I choose vertex, it will show us these small dots in every corner. These are called the vertex. Now here's a term that you have to understand. If we're talking about a single vertex, we call it vertex. If there's multiple, then we call them vertices. So you have to understand, when I say vertices, that means I'm talking about more than one vertex. If I'm just saying vertex, that means it is just one single vertex. If I connect two vertices, I will end up with a line that is called an edge. So if I right click and choose edge, that's this one. I can say this is also a vertex. This is also an edge. This is also an edge. This is also an edge, and so on and so forth. If I connect four edges, that is 1, 2, 3, and 4, I will end up with a plane. This plane is called a face. So if I right click here, I can access my face and click on that so that I can select my face. Now these vertex, edge, and face, these three elements contribute to creation of a polygon. Now these faces are also generally called polygons because sometimes they might have more than 4 edges. But it's optimal to have 4 edges. It'll be easy for you to texture and do all kinds of other stuff. Now let's look at some other primitives. We can create cylinder. We can create cone. We can create torus, pyramid, or any other primitives from here. Now you'll also notice that no matter what object you have selected, you will always find these vertex, edge, and faces. And we can actually manipulate them in order to get whatever design that we want. Now let's create a couple of primitives and see how we can modify their values. I'll create a cylinder. Right here in this input area, I can adjust this radius. Say for example, instead of 1, I can give 2, which makes the radius bigger. I can adjust the height from 2 to 5, for example, which changes the value. Now there's an easier way to change these values also. All I have to do is select this label, come to the viewport, use the middle mouse button, and click and drag from left to right, so that you will notice that the value in the height is actually changing, and we can visually see that in the viewport. I can also do this for any other attribute. I can go to radius, and you can see that I can adjust the radius directly like that by pressing with middle mouse button and dragging to left and right. I can also increase the subdivision height. that decides how many divisions we want, and the subdivision cap. You can even keep it 0, which gives a clear space there. Let's look at a couple of other primitives. Let's say a sphere. Again, we have radius, which we can adjust, and subdivision axis. The more you have, the smoother it will be. The less you have, the less smooth it will be. Okay, so depending on how much division you want, how smooth you want the surface to look, you can adjust that. Let's create a prism. As you can see, we have side length. We have the number of sides. We can increase as many as we want. And we have subdivision height. We have subdivision cap. That looks like a spider web. Okay, so we can choose the side length and the total length. Okay, so we can create a helix, and then we have subdivision axis. That makes it more and more smooth. Subdivision coil, and we have radius. Let's keep it something like that, small. Okay, good. And I can decide the height, the number of coils. That looks like a nice spring. Okay, fine. So we can just adjust these input values to create the desired primitive that we want. So this concludes the video on creating primitive objects in Maya.